Hello and welcome to this new video. In the previous videos, we optimized our code on the player controller and game mode side. In this video, we want to continue our work to manage the lobby session in Match. So to allow the host to persist the data during the server travel and to allow him to manage the life cycle of the session as well as the situations in case of clients leaving from his match. Before we start, you need to know a few things about server seamless traveling. When the host starts the match and therefore does a server travel, the on-post logout event and the on-destroyed event do not trigger, because seamless travel persists the game mode and its players during travel. In this video, I will implement World 1. It's just an example to show you how to manage the match once started. So in the World 1 folder, we will create a player controller of type Master Player Controller as well, a game mode of type Master Game Mode, to then assign them to level World 1. Once the game mode is created, name it GM_World 1. Then create the player controller and name it PC_World 1. In World 1 game mode, override the function getMasterGameModeReference. Set the player controller of this game mode to be the PC_World 1. Set the default pawn to be your own character. In my case, I will use the third-person character of the template. Open the player controller of World 1. Then override the getMasterPlayerControllerReference function. From the lobby player controller, there is no need to copy the implementation of controller readiness. Because in case of server travel, the replication system is not interrupted. This means that we can get info from player controller directly. I will copy the implementation, but I will not use it. It is only to show you how to copy it in case you need it in another map. We must also copy the timer and its associated variable. We will copy the implementation of Setup UI. We will have to change the widget to add to the viewport later. Paste the selected nodes, then change the input mode to Game and UI. We need to create a simple widget to display in World 1 viewport. Create a new user widget. Then name it WB_World1. In this widget, we will just add a button that allows players to leave the match. We will implement the logic when this button is clicked later. Go back to the player controller of World 1 and add the widget to the node. Don't forget to change the level's game mode to GM_World1. For the game mode of World 1, we must copy the same begin play implementation of the lobby. I want to rename the variable lobby session to current session, because for me it is a session whatever its type. To get the current session from the World 1 game mode, we can simply find it by calling the getCurrentSession function of the game instance. Copy the variable updated sessions and then the function updateCurrentSession. You can now copy the implementation. For the event on post login, we will do nothing, because it is not triggered in case of server travel. The problem is now how to get the connected player controllers in the World 1 game mode, and therefore how to check the readiness status of each controller, to then obtain the player cards and the member settings. Well, the solution is simple. We have to go through game state. The game state is responsible for enabling the clients to monitor the state of the game. Conceptually, the game state should manage information that is meant to be known to all connected clients and is specific to the game mode but is not specific to any individual player. To get the number of players is also simple. We can call the Unreal Engine function getNumberPlayers, which returns the number of players including the server. We now want to fetch the list of connected player controllers via the game state. To do this, call the node getGameState, then call the variable getPlayerArray. It is an array of player states. And then we can get the player controller of each player from its player state. Once we have the player controller reference, we can add it to our current player controllers array. Select these nodes and then collapse them into a function. We now need to copy the on-post logout implementation. This event triggers if a player leaves the match, and does not trigger in case of a second server travel, for example from World 1 to World 2. We need to remove the implementation of spawn characters. It's a thing specific to lobby game mode only. We now need to update the member settings and player cards variables when the match starts. So we need to get the info from each player controller. From Game Mode Lobby, copy the function on Player Controller Ready. Here we want to change the code. Because we don't want to spawn a character when the player controller is connected. We just want to update the member settings and player cards variables. Also, we don't want to leave these two functions. Because the players are already members of the session, and they are also registered. What interests us is to call them when a player leaves the match. And it is already done in the event on post logout. I want to add a custom event that is used to get the info from each player controller to update the variables. We will call it once the list of player controllers is filled. We will loop through the array of controllers. Then update our variables for each array element. Rename the function to give it a name that designates its purpose. I want to remove the timer I defined in the player controller of World 1. It was just to show you how to implement it if needed. Don't forget to call the function set cards and members for each item of controller array. I forgot to record the screen when I did it. We don't want to copy the implementation of create session, because the session is already created in the lobby. On the other hand, we want to copy the implementations of update session, end session, and destroy session. For the start session, we don't want to do it, because the session was started when the server traveled. We also want the implementation of kick member from session, because the host can kick players if he leaves the match. The end session will be used by the host when the match ends, and so afterwards it can do a destroy session. The update session is used by the game mode if a player leaves the game. I want to destroy the session once it is ended. So when the host leaves the match or when the match ends. So in the begin play event of the game mode of World 1. Assign the event dispatcher of the parent class, on session ended, then call the destroy session when this delegate fires. So, if the session is ended, then all members will be kicked. Then the session will be destroyed. I now want to code the logic when the Leave Match button is clicked. So go to the World 1 widget and add the on-clicked event. The logic will therefore be, if the host clicks the button, he will then call the end session of the game mode. On the other hand, if it is the client who clicks the button, he must leave the session and therefore return to his lobby. The client can get the session name from his game instance. Remember, the leave session implementation is coded in the master player controller, so no needs to do anything on the player controller side of World 1. Return to the game mode of World 1. We must also assign in the begin play the event dispatcher of the parent, on session destroyed. Because we want the host also returns to his lobby once all the members are kicked and the session is destroyed. We still want to fix something. In fact, during the server travel, the game state needs a short delay before it updates the player states and therefore the connected player controllers. So with our current implementation, the game state will return the references of the old game mode, therefore the old player controllers of the lobby. We must therefore add a short delay before calling the set player controllers function. There is also something to fix on the kick players from session function side. We call the event dispatcher once the loop that kicks the members is complete. While the kick operation is latent, so the call of the event dispatcher will take place before all the kick operations are executed. In this case, the session will not be destroyed because there are still members in the session. So we want to change the implementation. Add a new function and name it f_wait for members kick. This function will check with a timer if the number of players is greater than 1. It means that we still have clients connected. Disconnect the destroy session implementation, then move it into a custom event which will be called once the number of players is 1. Set a timer by function name, then give it the name of the function we have just created. Check the looping box. Then promote the output to a variable. as I already announced. Create a custom event, then connect the destroy session implementation to it. Once done, go back into the function to call it. It is recommended to set a short delay before calling the destroy event, to be sure that the session has successfully passed to the ended state on the OSS backend side. Because the lobby game mode has the same problem of kicking members, I want to copy the implementation we did to update the lobby game mode. It seems to me that everything is good. We want to launch a test to verify the implementation. Create a session on player 1, then join it from player 2 and 3. Set all players ready. Then make sure to play World 1. Now try to leave the match on player 3. And voila! The player has successfully exited the match and returned to his lobby. As well as the session has been updated, and number of players is now 2. Now try to leave the match on player 2 side. If the host leaves the match, he will be returned to his lobby. But we cannot check the kick process because he is the only one left in the match. For that we will repeat the process. Moreover, we can see that the session has been destroyed. Create a new session, then join it from player 2 and 3. Start the World 1 match, then try to leave the match on the host side. And voila! The host waited for the kick process. And once it was finished, he destroyed the session and returned to his lobby. Everything works as it should. This video is an example of how to manage the session in the match. That's all for this video. See you in the next one.